Hello, my name is Bill Dold. I'm going to be discussing stress in the managing stress in the work-life balance from Chapter 7 in our text, Organizational Behavior. This is for the COM 622 course at Liberty University. As individuals, we have all sorts of stressors. For example, I'm a husband, a father, an employee, a student, and a friend to others. As I look at my stressors, I can determine that most of my stressors are not only mine, but for others unsure. Some of these stressors are financial, family related, and work related. Specifically, it is a stressor to balance everything out. Through this presentation, I will define stress and explain the process and types of stress. I will discuss the different types of individuals and how they respond to stress. I will discuss two specific ways to handle stress as well. I'll speak about the consequences of stress. Finally, I will discuss the work-life stress linkages. Please follow along with my PowerPoint to help facilitate this presentation. Please change the slide. Defining stress looks at both physical and psychological demands of stress. The text describes stress as a person's adaptive response to the stimulus that places excessive or physical psychological demands on themselves. What exactly does that mean? It means that, quite simply, the way a person responds to demands on their mind or body. You can just respond both positive or negative to that kind of thing. Please change the slide. There are two types of stress: distress or eustress. Distress is viewed as the bad stress. This can come from excessive pressure, unreasonable demands on yourself, bad news such as illness or death. These can all be considered bad stress with a bad outcome. Eustress is stress that's considered positive because of the positive outcome. Things like a new job, a new child, or a wedding. Think about having your first child. It's stressful because you need to make sure that the baby's room is ready. You need to make sure that everything is in place. The last week before your wedding, you need to make sure all the arrangements are made. Things of that nature. Next slide, please. There are two types of personalities discussed in the text. These are type A and type B. A type B has a more relaxed view of life, where a type A is a more driven, motivated person. It was originally thought that type A personalities had a higher chance of heart attack than type B, whereas recent studies have shown that type A is less likely to have a heart attack because they're more rigorous in taking care of their body, and they're more likely to listen to what the doctor has to say. Next slide, please. Two specific ways a person can directly deal with stress is hardiness and optimism. Hardiness is defined as the ability to cope with stress. Specifically, a person who is hardy is better locus of control, or understanding of things. They are committed to the activities in their life. They deal with stress in a positive way that keeps things in perspective. Optimism is where a person sees things as positive. They take stress as a part of life that makes them stronger, or a building block, if you will. These are the glasses half full type of people. Please forward to the next slide. There are many things that can cause stress, as mentioned before. There are organizational stressors, for example. The text talks about 4 specific stressors in the workplace. These are task demands, physical demands, role demands, and interpersonal demands. Task-related stressors are high in some professions. They gave the example of the airline pilot or the surgeon. These are people who are responsible for other people's lives. Another stressor can be a stressor based on person's health. For example, a coal miner would have a stressful life based on task because of the coal dust that can get into their lungs. Physical demands are discussed, using temperature as one example. Further physical demands such as heavy lifting are obvious. However, surprisingly, the physical layout of the office can also be considered a physical demand. That was interesting for me. Role demands are based on the position of the individual. This is shown as a manager could have more stress about what needs to get done than a subordinate. Think about the military. The higher rank you go, the more responsible you are for what you do. However, role ambiguity or confusion may cause stress. That would be where a person doesn't understand where they fit in the system. Interpersonal demands are stressful because of dealing with other people. Peers, supervisors, and individual stressors can come into play. Some employees need more from a leader, some need less. The balancing act of leadership can be stressful when dealing with others. Please forward to the next slide. Consequences of stress. Personal and organizational stressors have consequences. Personal consequences such as behavioral, psychological, and medical. When looking at behavioral, if a person is stressed, they might smoke more, drink more, use illicit drugs, things that are harmful on the body. Psychological can lead to mental health issues such as depression, and medical issues can arise such as a heart attack or stroke. But another personal consequence of stress could be that a person does get more healthy. They use exercise as an outlet, for example. Organizational consequences can range from performance, such as poor quality of work, to withdrawal, such as quitting the job or turning introverted when coming to others, to even poor attitudes, just complaining about everything and anything that anyone will listen to. Next slide, please. Undoubtedly, work and personal lives intermingle. Some of the issues that arise could be fundamentally work-related relationships and balancing those relationships. Some of the fundamental relationships that are there are family relationships. An example would be a person with a large family may not take a job that travels a lot or has extensive hours, but that has a good benefits. Whereas a single person or a person with no dependents may not be concerned with benefits as much. They would be more likely to work overtime, for example, or they can even have the willingness to travel. Balancing those relationships require a balancing act that is more difficult than stated. The individual has to decide what's best for them. The person has to do what's best for themselves or their family. So sometimes that means that you're going to do less for work than you are for your family. The question I'm going to pose is to you, my classmates, is what have you found to be your biggest stressor in your balancing act that includes school? Now, this can be more stress at home, more stress because you have to work less, maybe not work the overtime to get the project done, things of that nature. My biggest stressor at this point is getting the work done on time. My family went through a death in the family about a month ago, right before week 2 started. So everything got kind of put on the wayside so we could get funeral arrangements and things of that nature. So I would like to know what you, as my fellow students, deem as your biggest stressor. Thank you for taking the time to watch this presentation.